Hi there, this is Kevin with Roguedeckbuilder.com here with the follow-up video for the spoilers for January the 13th. These have been spoiled for a little bit now, and I haven't had time to make a video, so I thought I'd just hit this right now and talk about the pre-release spoilers that you'll be able to play with these as your pre-release promo. And so a bit of a decision in which color, which deck you will choose for the pre-release will be dependent on the promo, because you'll know at least one card that is going to go into your deck. So of course you're still going to make a judgment based upon the overall power level of the set. And I believe, again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, Theros, you're going to be using 50% of your cards is going to be Theros cards. So again, the power level of the cards in Theros. And so far in Limited and Sealed, by far my favorite color is black. So if I were to choose Theros again, I would go black because it just has so many just bomb cards in the common slot, the common and uncommon slot, as well as just if you get there's tons of cards like Whip of Erebos that were just bomb cards in black to begin with. So anyway, so you're going to keep that into account. I didn't like the black card, the Aberrant Overlord in Theros, but again, you judge the pre-release based upon the overall power level. But again, you got to consider the promo because you will be able to play with it. So we're going to go over the promos right now, which, first of all, white is called Silent Sentinel. My only problem with this card is it's the 7 casting cost. What I like about this, now let me talk about that real quick. 6 to 7 is huge in Sealed because the probability that you hit 7 mana, it has a huge dependence on how many lands you play. And hitting 6 means you can easily play, like, you can still probably get away with 16 lands. I would not go 15 if you have a 6 drop in your deck, but 7 is almost guaranteeing you need to play 17 or 18 lands just to statistically be able to hit 7 lands, because you got to think that that's basically 2 more cards that you have to dedicate. The land, and I mean it's more like actually 3 more cards you have to dedicate if you're playing a 35-40% land in your deck that you have to dedicate to be able to actually hitting that 7 drop, because you want to be consistently hitting 7 so you can cast your bomb. So it's huge. Someone do the math for me. I'm sure there's a mathematician out there that can actually verify this, but it's huge. Anything. A 5 to a 6 is a huge jump, but a 6 to a 7 is a gigantic jump in Limited. Whereas like 8 casting is basically unplayable. No matter how good the card is in Limited, 8 is basically unplayable. And then you go up from there, like 9, 10. Those cards you might as well not even put in your deck. That's why, like, even if you drafted the worm from Ravnica, the one that cost 11, you would probably not put that in your sealed deck just because it would be too hard to cast. So you got to keep that in mind. I'm a definite fan of 6. I think 6 is very achievable in Limited, but 7 is pushing it. So bear that in mind. I can't tell you how many games the Aberrant Overlord stuck in my hand in the pre-release because I didn't have 7 lands, and I didn't, and that's still getting stuck on 6. You can get stuck there for 3-4 turns on 6 with that bomb in your hand that you need to cast then. Anyway, so let's just go on to Silent Sentinel. What I do like about it is the flying. It's got evasion. What I don't like is the 4-6. So I would of course prefer that to be reversed or a more balanced 5-5. But there might be a removal in the format that does 5 damage. So we'll have to wait and see if there is one. And then of course Silent Sentinel dodges that. So that could be a factor. I would also like to think this card needed vigilance if it was a 4-6, so it could attack and block. But its ability is really, really good. And when I first saw this, I didn't really like it because it's return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. But then I saw that they are going to be going all out on Bestow again in this set, and the Bestow cards that were spoiled, I did talk about some of these in the other one. Well, just look in white, you got another Shieldmate, another one. If they're 3 mana Bestow, and 3 mana is a lot easier on the Bestow cost. And again, this is a 1-2 for 1. So Silent Sentinel with this Shieldmate's pretty good because every time you attack, you get a chump blocker. So if it comes into a stalemate, if the boards are both clogged, you can get in there for 4 and then put a chump blocker back in for their 12-12 trample dude, 12-12 beast dude that the green's going to have. And so it'll help you win the race. You'll get in there for evasion and have a chump blocker up. So I do like the Silent Sentinel. Don't get me wrong. I think this ability is very, very good, but I'm still feeling like it needed vigilance to justify the 7 mana, or it needed just a little bit better power. A 4-turn clock is huge compared to a 5-turn clock as well in sealed. So not a big fan of the white one. We'll do a ranking at the end here of what I think the most powerful cards are. All right, so let's go to Mediator of the Ideal. I love this card. It's a 4/5. It's flying as well. It's got evasion as well, and it's got the ability of Inspiration. Inspiration is whenever it becomes untapped, you get to do its ability. So whenever Mediator of the Ideal untaps, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact, creature, or land, you may put it on the battlefield with a manifestation counter on it. Manifestation means it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. This card is really good in limited. I first look at this and I'm like, why would blue want an ability to put artifact, creature, or land? This feels like more of a green type ability. Reveal the top card of your library. I mean, what is that card that's called the Wild? It's kind of like a Call of the Wild type ability. But in sealed, you're going to be using the majority of your cards are going to be artifact, creatures, and lands. I mean, lands and creatures are going to be the vast majority of your deck. So it's going to be great. It's going to be probably a 1/3 card advantage per turn every time it swings. And it's the 6 mana, which in my opinion is a lot easier to cast, hugely easier to cast than 7 mana. And it has a 4/5. It's got a nice little balanced flying toughness. Again, so 5 toughness in the format is huge because it dodges Lash the Whip, and it also dodges Rage of Perforos, which are 2 very, very popular removal cards in Theros. So this guy has some evasion towards that, or has some defense against those 4 toughness cards. And the ability for it to have that card advantage per turn is huge. All right, so go on to the black one. The black one is Devour of Hope. Again, it is a 6/4 flying. So all of them have flying so far. And again, the 4 toughness is definitely going to be pertinent in this format. It dies to Rage of Perforos, and it dies to Lash the Whip. Now, you can regenerate it, but you can't regenerate Lash the Whip because Lash the Whip gives negative counters, or negative toughness. And you have to sacrifice another creature to regenerate. That's actually really good in a black deck. But again, 7 mana for a 6/4 flying. That's a little underwhelming. You would want something that can't be chump blocked by a 4/4 flyer, which there are plenty in the format, or whatnot. Or again, can't chump block anything at all, or it can't be on the defensive. And you have to be able to regenerate it, you still have to sacrifice another creature. Why can't this just be regenerate for black? That'd be so much better. And then the ability everyone was talking about in my local game store, they were talking about how great the second ability is. You have to sacrifice 2 other creatures, and you got to keep in mind this other is going to become pertinent as well, because you cannot sacrifice itself and another creature to destroy a problematic creature. So it's 2 other creatures you have to have on board. In sealed, yes, that does happen often. In like standard and in constructed, yeah, good luck with that. I am not a fan of Devour the Hope. I do not want to go black just because of this card, and I do believe that it is very underwhelming for what you get. All right, on to red. And red, this one probably is my favorite of the ones built so far because its abilities are very pertinent. Again, it dies to the 4. It doesn't pass the 4 toughness. But again, it's only 6 mana, not 7, so that's definitely going to be an advantage. But what's really cool about the dragon is it's got double evasion here. It's got evasion from the flying, but then it's got also evasion from reach and other flying creatures by dealing the damage, and it cannot block. And also, it has a really good ability to just pick off weenies to begin with. So I'm really liking this dragon. A 5/4 for 6, that's not bad with flying, and the ability to wipe your opponent's board. I mean, you're going to have up to 3 damage available, a guaranteed 3 damage available next turn because you have the 6 mana that it casts to put it out. So it feels a lot like Niv Mizzet. You're not drawing cards, but you are dealing 1 damage per 2 mana. It does not do it to player, but still, it's fine. For a pre-release card, this is a very powerful mechanic. Again, that 5/4 instead of 5/5 is going to be huge because Lash of the Whip, Rage of Perforos, and I'm sure there's some other cards that I don't even realize here that the 4 toughness is going to come into play. So last and not least, let's go over to the Nessian Savage Devastator. It's another Hydra. Holy Hydras, Invasion of the Hydras. This has Tribute, and I talked about this in the other video. Tribute is always the worst of the two scenarios. So people need to get it out of their head that these are both, as powerful by themselves as if they were if they didn't give your opponent the choice. So it's either a 12-12 because it's Tribute 6. So your opponent gets the option to either give it 6 +1/+1 counters, or it fights a creature. See, what's going to happen is if they don't have any creatures on board, they're going to let you have just a 6/6 that... And wow, does it... You may. Okay, so when it enters the battlefield, you may have it fight. If that was a must, that would be terrible because it would kill itself. But anyway, I really think that if they have a creature out, they're just gonna tribute it, because that is very powerful. 6/6 for 6 that destroys target creature, basically, because let's face it, it's going to kill any creature in the format, or basically any creature in the format, is huge. So you're always going to end up tributing this, so it is going to end up usually being a 12-12 for 6, which is big, but it doesn't have trample, so they can chump block it for days. And that's the only problem I have with that. And I don't think it's as powerful as everyone thinks it is right off the bat. But again, 6/6 for 6 is nothing to joke at by itself. A 12-12 for 6 is huge. And a 6/6 that fights a creature can be very good as well. But again, that is never going to happen if it's going to be a good thing. They're either going to let you get rid of something that's useless, that's just been sitting out and is underclassed and is just dead on board, or they're just going to let you have 12 counter or 6 counters if it's a card that they need to stay out, and then just continue to chump block it for turn after turn after turn. Or, yeah, that's basically, or they're not going to have a creature on board and you just get a 6/6. So anyway, so let's just rank them. Again, this all depends on what else is going to be spoiled. And the card that I think has the most synergy with the strategy you're trying to go is definitely the Firestir Dragon. So I am going to rank Firestir Dragon as the #1 pre-release promo, followed closely, this is a very close thing, by Mediator of the Ideal, because I just think that is just such a powerful ability, especially if there is some sort of way to abuse it, like if there's some sort of tap-on-tap mechanic. I know we already have Springleaf Drum in the format, but if we have some sort of untap a creature, you could actually abuse the crap out of this. I'm thinking that there might actually be some way in Theros that this can already happen. I can think of hidden strings in Dragon's Maze that can definitely abuse this dude. But if that's the case, if you do get some abusable combo in the pre-release, this card can be very, very powerful. So #2 is going to go to Mediator of the Ideal. And then on #3, I'm going to give it to the green one. I think it is more powerful, even as just a 6/6 for 6 is more powerful than the 2 7-mana casting cost creatures, which would then go to Silent Sentinel, which I still think is a decent rare. I still think it's playable, but unfortunately, I think if I even were playing black, and knowing how black seems to be a very aggressive strategy in this format. I mean, one of my favorite archetypes to go in the Theros limited, at least, not sealed, but at least Theros draft, is Bug. I like to go Bug and Jund, because a lot of those cards, the cards like the Horizon Chimera, or the cards like Farika's Mender, and some of those like dual cards, those multicolor cards, get passed so late that you can fill up your hand with a bunch of removal, or just stall cards and then get those bombs. Like freaking Mender is so good and limited. And if that's the case, like this card would be good because you're just stalling until you get your 6/4. I'm okay with that. But that's so much easier in draft than it is in sealed to make a deck that stalls. I mean, you get the early removal, you play a high curve, you play like 17, 18 lands, and you just begin to outclass your opponent with bigger cards later on. In sealed, you don't have that luxury, and so you have to work with the cards that you get. And most of the cards you get, at least from Theros, you have like cards like Tormented Hero, you have cards like Mogus Marauder, you have very aggressive black cards, and so it doesn't really fit the curve. You want to be aggressive, you want to overwhelm your opponent before they stabilize, and Devourer of Hope is kind of counterintuitive to that. And so even in sealed, I'm going to see, even if I go black, I'm not going to rely on Devour the Hope, and it most likely is not going to make the 40 cards. It's gonna get cut, and in this case, it's not going to make like the 23 or 22 cards you'd want in a black deck. You'd have to see and wait and see. There might be other cards that, again, this Aberrant Overlord gives you tons of tokens, and I'm sure there's other token generators. There's already plenty of them that exist in Theros, but definitely think the Devourer of Hope is the weakest. So I'm interested in your guys' list. definitely let me know in the comments. I'd like to see how you rank them. So rank them from 1 to 5. Again, I'll go over my ranks here. Coming in at number 1 is Firestir Dragon, and it's a dragon. We all like dragons. Fire Fist Dragon at number 1. Number 2 is Mediator of the Ideal. Number 3 is Nessian Savage Devastator. And number 4 is Silent Sentinel. And the 5th, last and definitely least, is Devourer of Hope. This has been Kevin with Roguedeckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.